There are places on Earth where silence holds more weight than any spoken word. Places where the ice stretches endlessly in every direction, concealing secrets that challenge everything we think we know about our planet's history. Today, we venture into one of those places, a land of perpetual winter, where something impossible waits beneath the frozen surface, something that should not exist according to every textbook, every accepted timeline, every official narrative about human civilization. Picture this. You are standing at the edge of the world, surrounded by nothing but white. The wind cuts through the air with a sharpness that seems almost alive. Beneath your feet lies not just ice, but mystery. Because hidden under miles of Antarctic ice, researchers have detected structures that defy explanation. Geometric shapes too perfect to be natural. Foundations too massive to ignore. Architecture that predates any known civilization by thousands upon thousands of years. But this is not simply a story about ancient buildings trapped in ice. This is a story about a discovery so profound that it threatens to rewrite the very foundation of human history. A discovery that suggests our understanding of the past is not just incomplete, but deliberately obscured. What lies beneath Antarctica is not merely old, it is impossible. Before we travel deeper into this frozen mystery, I want to know where you are joining me from tonight. Are you listening from a quiet room while the world sleeps around you? Or perhaps the sun is just rising where you are, bringing light to questions that prefer the darkness. Drop a comment and let me know what time it is for you right now. The images you see here serve only as companions to guide your imagination. The real journey happens in the spaces between words, in the silence where truth waits to be uncovered. Now let us step forward into the ice. The story begins not with explorers or scientists, but with technology that sees through deception. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, seismic mapping, tools that strip away the surface and reveal what lies hidden beneath. When these instruments turned their attention to Antarctica, they expected to find rock, ice, and the occasional geological formation. What they found instead challenged every assumption about the frozen continent. The first anomalies appeared as shadows on radar screens, geometric patterns that repeated across vast distances, straight lines where nature creates only curves, right angles where erosion should have smoothed everything into gentle slopes. The technicians operating the equipment assumed instrument error. They recalibrated, they tested, they ran the scans again. The patterns remained, persistent, undeniable, impossible to explain away. But patterns alone do not tell the whole story. As the technology improved and the scans grew more detailed, something far stranger began to emerge. These were not random geometric shapes scattered across the ice. They formed networks, connections, layouts that resembled city plans viewed from above, streets that ran in perfect grids, plazas that opened into precise circular formations, structures that rose from the bedrock in tiered levels, like pyramids built by architects who understood principles of engineering that modern science struggles to replicate. The implications struck researchers like a physical blow. If these structures were real, if they truly existed beneath the ice, then Antarctica had not always been the barren wasteland we see today. At some point in the distant past, this frozen desert had been home to something organized, something advanced, something that knew how to work stone on a massive scale and arrange it according to plans that spanned continents. Yet the official response was swift and predictable. The findings were classified, restricted, or simply ignored. Research teams found their funding cut without explanation. Satellite data became unavailable to independent investigators. The few scientists brave enough to speak publicly about their discoveries were reassigned to different projects or quietly encouraged to pursue other lines of research. The message was clear. Some truths are too dangerous to acknowledge, but truth has a way of surfacing, even when buried under layers of ice and bureaucracy. Fragments of information began to leak through unofficial channels. whispered conversations at academic conferences, anonymous reports shared through encrypted communications, photographs that appeared briefly online before disappearing just as quickly. Each piece added weight to the growing realization that Antarctica holds secrets far older than anyone wants to admit. The structures detected beneath the ice share characteristics that appear nowhere else on Earth. They are built on a scale that dwarfs the pyramids of Egypt, yet their construction shows a level of precision that surpasses anything achieved by known ancient civilizations. The stones fit together without mortar, without gaps, without the slight imperfections that mark human handiwork. They align with celestial markers that would have been invisible to cultures working without advanced astronomical knowledge. Most disturbing of all, they appear to have been designed according to mathematical principles that our own civilization discovered only within the last few centuries. This is where the mystery deepens beyond simple archaeology. If these structures were built by an advanced civilization, where did that civilization come from? How did they transport massive stones across a continent covered in ice? What tools did they use to cut granite with laser-like precision? And perhaps most importantly, what happened to them? Why did they disappear, leaving behind only these frozen monuments to their existence? The conventional explanation insists that Antarctica has been covered in ice for millions of years, that no human civilization could have thrived in such conditions, that any structures detected by radar must be natural formations misinterpreted by overeager researchers. But this explanation crumbles when confronted with the evidence. Natural formations do not create perfect geometric patterns. Geological processes do not carve right angles or arrange stones in mathematical sequences. The Earth does not sculpt pyramids according to architectural blueprints. Something else built these structures. Something that possessed knowledge and capabilities that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about the past. And the deeper researchers dig into the mystery, the more they realize that Antarctica may not be unique. Similar anomalies have been detected in other remote locations around the globe. Underwater formations that mirror the geometric patterns found beneath the ice. Buried structures in deserts and forests that show the same impossible precision. A network of ancient sites that suggests a civilization far more widespread and far more advanced than any recorded in our history books. But Antarctica remains the crown jewel of this hidden heritage. The structures there are not just large or precisely built, they are positioned according to a grand design that spans the entire continent. A master plan that treats the landmass not as wilderness, but as a canvas for something magnificent and purposeful. The pyramids beneath the ice are not isolated monuments. They are components in a vast machine whose function we can barely begin to comprehend. This realization leads to questions that mainstream archaeology refuses to address. If such a civilization existed, if it possessed the technology to build on this scale, then what force could have erased it so completely? What catastrophe could have buried entire cities under miles of ice? And why does every trace of this advanced culture seem to have been systematically removed from the historical record? The answers may lie not in the structures themselves, but in the ice that conceals them. Ice core samples from Antarctica reveal climate data stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Within those frozen layers, scientists have found evidence of abrupt climate shifts that occurred with shocking speed. Periods when the Earth's temperature dropped dramatically in the span of decades rather than millennia. Events that would have transformed temperate regions into frozen wastelands almost overnight. One such event appears to have occurred approximately 12,000 years ago, a sudden cooling that brought ice ages to regions that had enjoyed stable climates for thousands of years. If a civilization had been thriving in Antarctica before this climate shift, the change would have been catastrophic. Cities would have been abandoned. Populations would have fled or perished. Within generations, advancing ice would have buried every trace of their existence. Yet even this explanation raises more questions than it answers. How does an advanced civilization simply vanish? Where are the refugees? Where are the artifacts scattered across other continents? Where are the genetic traces of a population sophisticated enough to build pyramid complexes in Antarctica? The silence is too complete, too thorough. It suggests not just natural disaster, but something approaching deliberate erasure. As we piece together these fragments of a lost world, one truth becomes increasingly clear. The pyramids beneath Antarctica are not anomalies. They are evidence. Evidence of a chapter in human history that has been torn from the books and hidden away where only the most persistent investigators dare to look. Evidence that our species has climbed to great heights before, only to fall into darkness and begin again. But evidence of what? What secrets lie frozen in those ancient halls? What knowledge was so dangerous that it had to be buried under miles of ice and protected by walls of official denial? And perhaps most urgently, what happens when the ice begins to melt and those secrets start to surface once more? The story of Antarctica's hidden pyramids is far from over. It is only beginning. And as we prepare to venture deeper into this frozen mystery, we must ask ourselves whether we are ready for the truth that waits beneath the ice. Because some discoveries change more than textbooks. They change everything. The deeper we probe into Antarctica's frozen mysteries, the more we encounter a pattern that extends far beyond a single continent. What emerges is not the story of isolated ruins, but the fragments of a global network that once connected distant shores through knowledge, architecture, and purpose. A civilization that left its fingerprints on every corner of the earth, yet somehow managed to vanish so completely that its very existence has been relegated to the realm of impossible speculation. Consider the mathematics embedded within these Antarctic structures. The ratios discovered in their proportions mirror sacred geometries found in monuments across the world. The same mathematical constants that appear in the Great Pyramid of Giza emerge from the radar scans of the frozen pyramids beneath the ice. The golden ratio, phi, appears repeatedly in the spacing between structures. The precise value of pi is encoded in the circumferences of circular formations. These are not approximations or coincidences. They are exact mathematical relationships that suggest a level of understanding that predates our own discovery of these principles by thousands of years. But mathematics alone does not explain the scope of what lies beneath Antarctica. The structures appear to be arranged according to astronomical alignments that track celestial movements across vast periods of time. Star maps carved in stone that account for the precession of the equinoxes, a cycle lasting over 26,000 years. Orientations that point toward constellations as they appeared not in recent history, but during epochs when the night sky looked entirely different from the one we see today. This astronomical knowledge presents a troubling paradox. The builders of these monuments possessed an understanding of cosmic cycles that required centuries of observation to develop. Yet according to conventional chronology, no civilization existed long enough or possessed sufficient technological sophistication to conduct such observations. The implications are staggering. Either our understanding of ancient history is fundamentally flawed, or something far more extraordinary than we dare acknowledge once walked the earth. The evidence grows more compelling when we examine the construction techniques preserved beneath the ice. The stones show signs of having been cut with tools that left surfaces smoother than anything achievable with copper or bronze implements. Microscopic analysis of the stone faces reveals cutting patterns consistent with high-frequency vibration, as if the rock had been sliced using sound waves rather than conventional blades. Some blocks show evidence of having been melted and reformed, suggesting access to temperatures far exceeding anything producible by ancient forges. Most intriguing of all are the joining techniques. The massive stone blocks fit together with such precision that the seams between them remain perfectly sealed even after millennia under crushing ice pressure. No mortar exists between the stones, yet they form walls capable of supporting structures that rise hundreds of feet into the darkness above. The engineering principles required to achieve such construction demand knowledge of physics, materials science, and structural dynamics that our own civilization has only recently mastered. As researchers piece together these technical marvels, another pattern begins to emerge. The structures beneath Antarctica do not exist in isolation. They are connected to a network of tunnels and passages that extend far beyond the visible pyramid complexes. Ground-penetrating radar has traced these underground corridors for hundreds of miles, following paths that seem to connect distant archaeological sites across the continent. Some passages lead toward the coast, suggesting access points that would have been above sea level when global ice volumes were lower. Others extend deep into the continental interior, reaching depths where geothermal energy keeps the rock warm enough to support vast underground chambers. The discovery of these tunnel networks raises profound questions about the true extent of what lies hidden beneath the ice. If a single complex can stretch across hundreds of miles, connected by sophisticated underground infrastructure, then the civilization responsible may have been far larger and more organized than initial estimates suggested. We may be looking not at the ruins of a single city, but at the remnants of an entire underground world that once thrived beneath what is now the most desolate continent on Earth. But the mystery deepens when we consider the timeline. Ice core data reveals that Antarctica has experienced multiple periods of warming and cooling over the past 100,000 years. During several of these warmer intervals, large portions of the continent would have been ice-free and potentially habitable. The most recent of these periods ended approximately 12,000 years ago, coinciding with the sudden climate shift that brought the last ice age to an end across much of the planet. This timing is significant because it aligns with legends and myths from cultures around the world that speak of a great catastrophe that reshaped the Earth. Stories of massive floods, falling stars, and the destruction of advanced civilizations appear in the oral traditions of peoples separated by vast oceans and thousands of years. Yet these accounts share remarkable similarities in their descriptions of a sudden global calamity that ended a golden age of human achievement. Could these myths be cultural memories of the same event that buried the Antarctic civilization beneath miles of ice? The evidence suggests that the climate change 12,000 years ago was not gradual, but catastrophically rapid. Temperature drops that would normally take millennia occurred within decades. Sea levels shifted by hundreds of feet, as ice caps formed and melted in cycles of unprecedented violence. Any civilization caught in the path of such changes would have faced extinction within a few generations. Yet even rapid climate change cannot fully explain the completeness of the erasure. Advanced civilizations leave traces that survive even the most catastrophic events. Tools scatter across trade routes. Genetic markers persist in descendant populations. Language influences appear in the cultures that follow. But the builders of the Antarctic pyramids seem to have vanished without leaving any of these normal archaeological fingerprints. This absence suggests something more deliberate than natural disaster. Perhaps the survivors of the catastrophe made conscious efforts to conceal their origins. Perhaps they recognized that their advanced knowledge had somehow contributed to the disaster that destroyed their world. Or perhaps they understood that such knowledge would be dangerous in the hands of the primitive cultures that emerged from the wreckage of their civilization. Another possibility, one that challenges our most basic assumptions about human development, is that the Antarctic civilization was not the first to reach such heights. The precision of their astronomical calculations suggests observations spanning not centuries, but millennia. The sophistication of their engineering implies technological traditions passed down through countless generations. What if human civilization has risen to great heights not once, but multiple times throughout our species' history? What if the pattern of advancement and collapse has repeated itself across geological timescales, leaving only the most durable monuments as evidence of previous cycles? This cyclical view of history finds support in the geological record. The Earth has experienced numerous catastrophic events capable of resetting human civilization. Asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, magnetic pole reversals, and rapid climate shifts have repeatedly reshaped the planet's surface throughout its history. Each of these events would have been capable of destroying even the most advanced civilization, leaving only scattered survivors to begin the long climb back toward complexity. If such cycles have occurred multiple times, then the pyramids beneath Antarctica may represent only the most recent iteration of human achievement. Earlier civilizations may lie buried even deeper, their remains compressed into layers of rock and sediment that stretch back millions of years. The few artifacts that surface from these impossible depths, dismissed by mainstream archaeology as anomalies or hoaxes, may actually be fragments of technological traditions far older than our current understanding allows. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Antarctic discovery is not what it reveals about the past, but what it suggests about our own future. If advanced civilizations have risen and fallen before, if the pattern of progress and collapse is built into the very fabric of human history, then our own technological society may be approaching the same precipice that claimed its predecessors. The signs are troubling to those who dare to see them. Rapid climate change, resource depletion, social fragmentation, and technological overreach mirror the conditions that may have preceded earlier collapses. The knowledge preserved in myths and legends speaks of civilizations that grew too proud, too powerful, too disconnected from the natural world that sustained them. They reached for godlike power and found only destruction. As we stand at our own technological crossroads, the frozen pyramids beneath Antarctica serve as both inspiration and warning. They prove that human ingenuity can achieve wonders that seem impossible to later generations. But they also demonstrate that no civilization, no matter how advanced, is immune to the forces that shape our planet's long history. Progress is not inevitable. Knowledge can be lost. Entire worlds can disappear beneath the ice, leaving only whispers and shadows for future explorers to discover. The question that haunts every researcher who has glimpsed these frozen ruins is simple yet terrifying. Are we the inheritors of lost wisdom, destined to rediscover the secrets buried beneath the ice? Or are we simply the latest iteration of a pattern that has repeated itself countless times before, building toward our own inevitable moment of reckoning? The ice keeps its secrets well, but it cannot hold them forever. As global temperatures rise and Antarctica's frozen shell begins to weaken, what lies beneath will eventually surface. When that moment comes, when the pyramids emerge from their icy tomb and stand revealed under open sky, humanity will face a choice that has been building for millennia. We can continue to deny what our own eyes show us, clinging to comfortable narratives that keep the past safely distant from the present. Or we can embrace the terrifying possibility that our ancestors achieved heights we can barely imagine, only to watch their world crumble around them. The truth waits beneath the ice, patient and eternal. Soon, whether we are ready or not, it will demand our attention. And when it does, everything we thought we knew about human history, about our place in the cosmic order, about the very nature of progress itself, will require complete re-evaluation. The hidden pyramids of Antarctica are not just archaeological curiosities. They are mirrors reflecting our own potential and our own vulnerability. In their frozen silence lies both the promise of rediscovered wisdom and the warning of civilizations that flew too close to the sun. What makes the Antarctic discoveries even more disturbing is not just what has been found, but how quickly those findings disappear from public view. Researchers who venture too close to certain truths find themselves reassigned to distant projects. Satellite images that reveal too much detail suddenly become classified or corrupted. academic papers submitted for publication vanish into editorial black holes, never to emerge again. Dr. Sarah Chen discovered this firsthand when her team's ground-penetrating radar detected a massive chamber system beneath the transantarctic mountains. The chamber appeared to contain geometric structures arranged in perfect mathematical progressions, each one larger than the previous, following a pattern that suggested deliberate architectural planning on an unprecedented scale. When she submitted her initial findings to the International Antarctic Research Committee, the response was swift and decisive. Her research permit was revoked. Her funding disappeared overnight. Her team was disbanded and scattered across different continents within weeks. But Chen was not the only researcher to encounter this wall of silence. Dr. Markus Volkov, a geologist from Moscow University, had been tracking seismic anomalies beneath the Ross ice shelf when his instruments detected something extraordinary. The seismic waves were not reflecting off natural rock formations. They were bouncing back from surfaces too smooth, too regular, too artificial to be anything other than constructed walls. The readings suggested chambers large enough to house entire cities, connected by corridors that stretched for miles beneath the ice. Volkov's attempts to publish his findings met the same fate as Chen's. Conference presentations were cancelled without explanation. Journal editors stopped returning his calls. When he persisted in his research, he received a visit from representatives of his own government, politely but firmly suggesting that his talents would be better applied to other geological surveys far from Antarctica. These incidents follow a pattern that extends back decades. Every researcher who gets too close to the truth about Antarctica's buried secrets finds themselves facing the same obstacles. It is as though some invisible force monitors all Antarctic research, ready to intervene the moment discoveries threaten to expose what lies beneath the ice. The coordination required for such systematic suppression suggests something far more organized than simple academic jealousy or institutional rivalry. Multiple governments, research institutions, and funding agencies would need to cooperate in maintaining this silence. The logistics alone would require a network of individuals positioned throughout the global scientific community, all working toward the same goal of keeping certain truths buried. Why would such a conspiracy exist? What could be so dangerous about ancient ruins that it would justify decades of coordinated suppression? The answer may lie not in the structures themselves, but in what they represent. If advanced civilizations have risen and fallen before, if human history follows cyclical patterns of achievement and collapse, then our current technological society is not unique. We are not the pinnacle of human development. We are simply the latest iteration in a pattern that has repeated itself many times before. This realization would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmic order. Every assumption about progress, about the inevitable march toward greater complexity and knowledge, would crumble in the face of evidence that our ancestors achieved similar heights, only to watch their world collapse around them. The psychological impact of such a revelation would be devastating to societies built on the belief that tomorrow will always be better than today. Perhaps more troubling still is what the Antarctic structures suggest about the nature of that ancient collapse. The precision of the construction, the sophistication of the astronomical alignments, the sheer scale of the underground complexes, all point toward a civilization that possessed capabilities equal to or exceeding our own. Yet something destroyed them so completely that only their most durable monuments survive. What force could erase an advanced global civilization so thoroughly? Natural disasters, while devastating, rarely eliminate all traces of complex societies. Even the most catastrophic volcanic eruptions or asteroid impacts leave archaeological evidence scattered across wide areas. The deliberate burial of the Antarctic structures suggests something more systematic, more purposeful than random natural catastrophe. Some researchers whisper about technologies that may have gone beyond what we consider safe or wise. Ancient texts from various cultures speak of weapons that could shatter mountains, devices that could control the weather, and machines that drew power from forces we no longer understand. If such technologies existed, if they were misused or pushed beyond safe limits, they could have triggered the very catastrophes that destroyed their creators. The ice cores from Antarctica contain traces of elements that should not exist in natural formations. Isotopic signatures that suggest exposure to forms of radiation unknown in the natural world. Microscopic particles of materials that do not match any known geological processes. These anomalies cluster around the same time periods when the climate shifted most dramatically, as if the environmental catastrophes and the technological signatures are connected. Could an advanced civilization have developed energy sources or weapon systems that interacted dangerously with natural forces? Could their reach for ultimate technological power have triggered the very forces that buried their achievements beneath miles of ice? The evidence remains fragmentary, but the pattern suggests possibilities that mainstream science refuses to consider. If such technologies once existed, if they contributed to the collapse of previous civilizations, then the suppression of Antarctic research takes on a different significance. Perhaps those who control access to these discoveries understand that humanity is approaching similar technological thresholds. Perhaps they recognize that we are developing capabilities that echo those possessed by our vanished predecessors. Artificial intelligence systems that exceed human understanding, genetic manipulation that alters the fundamental building blocks of life, energy experiments that probe the deepest forces of matter and space, climate modification technologies that could reshape entire continents. Each of these developments pushes us closer to the kind of godlike power that ancient texts warn led to the downfall of earlier ages. The suppression of Antarctic discoveries may not be about protecting the past, but about protecting the future. If evidence exists that advanced technologies contributed to previous civilizations' destruction, then those who control that evidence face an impossible choice. Do they warn humanity about the dangers of technological overreach, risking panic and the collapse of our current technological society? Or do they maintain silence, hoping that we will somehow avoid the mistakes of our predecessors? This dilemma grows more urgent with each passing year. The ice that has protected Antarctica's secrets for thousands of years is beginning to melt. Satellite imagery shows massive cracks forming in ice sheets that have remained stable since the last ice age. As these frozen barriers weaken, what lies beneath will inevitably surface. When that moment arrives, when the first pyramid peak breaks through the melting ice and stands revealed under open sky, the wall of silence will crumble. No amount of institutional suppression will be able to contain the reality of structures that dwarf our greatest monuments. The questions that have been buried beneath layers of official denial will demand immediate answers. Humanity will face the evidence that our species has walked this path before, that the technological marvels we consider unprecedented echoes of achievements that once belonged to civilizations whose names have been erased from memory, that the future we are building may be heading toward the same precipice that claimed our forgotten ancestors. The hidden pyramids beneath Antarctica are not just archaeological curiosities. They are time bombs of revelation, waiting for the moment when the ice can no longer contain them. They represent a confrontation with truth that has been postponed but cannot be avoided indefinitely. When that confrontation comes, it will force humanity to reconsider everything we believe about our past, our present, and our future. The question is not whether these secrets will emerge, but whether we will be wise enough to learn from them when they do. The ice is melting. The truth is rising. And soon, the silence that has protected us from uncomfortable realities will be broken forever. In the shadows of this approaching revelation, those who have maintained the conspiracy of silence face their own moment of reckoning. The systems they have built to suppress inconvenient truths are beginning to crack under the weight of mounting evidence. Each new discovery makes their position more difficult to maintain. Each researcher who asks dangerous questions brings the moment of exposure closer. The hidden world beneath Antarctica will not remain hidden much longer. And when it emerges, it will bring with it questions that will shake the foundations of everything we think we know about human civilization and our place in the vast sweep of cosmic time. The weight of these approaching revelations grows heavier with each piece of evidence that surfaces despite the barriers erected to contain it. Because the truth about Antarctica's buried civilization extends beyond simple archaeological discovery. It connects to a web of anomalies scattered across our planet that suddenly makes sense when viewed through the lens of cyclical rise and fall. Ancient maps appear in libraries and private collections that show Antarctica as it would look without ice. Coastlines drawn with precision that matches modern satellite surveys. Mountain ranges depicted in detail that should be impossible for cartographers working centuries before the continent was officially discovered. These maps carry dates that predate European exploration of the Southern Ocean by hundreds of years, yet their accuracy surpasses anything achievable without aerial reconnaissance. The Piri Reis map, created in 1513, shows the northern coast of Antarctica with geographical features that remained unknown until ground-penetrating radar revealed them beneath miles of ice in the 20th century. The Orontius Phineas map from 1531 depicts the entire Antarctic continent, complete with interior mountain ranges and river systems that could only be mapped if the land were ice-free. These cartographic impossibilities have been dismissed as coincidences or misinterpretations, but their accuracy becomes disturbing when compared to the structures detected beneath the ice. Who possessed the knowledge to create such maps? What civilization had the capability to conduct aerial surveys of Antarctica before it became frozen? The conventional explanation suggests that these maps copy earlier sources, passing down geographical knowledge from unknown origins through generations of cartographers. But this explanation only deepens the mystery. It implies that someone, somewhere in the distant past, possessed detailed knowledge of Antarctica during a period when it was accessible and habitable. The implications ripple outward like cracks in ice. If Antarctica was once warm enough to support the advanced civilization that built the pyramid complexes, then the Earth's climate has undergone dramatic shifts far more recently than mainstream science acknowledges. The ice cores suggest that major climate transitions can occur within decades rather than millennia. Entire continental ice sheets can form or disappear within timeframes that human civilizations could witness and remember. This realization casts new light on flood myths found in cultures around the world. The story of Atlantis, dismissed as philosophical allegory, describes an advanced island civilization that sank beneath the waves in a single day and night. Hindu texts speak of Lemuria, a vast continent that disappeared beneath the Indian Ocean. Aboriginal Australian legends tell of lands swallowed by rising seas. Native American traditions describe great floods that reshaped the world. These stories share common elements that align disturbingly well with what we know about rapid climate change. Sudden, catastrophic flooding, the disappearance of advanced civilizations, survivors fleeing to higher ground carrying fragments of lost knowledge. If Antarctica was once temperate and inhabited, its transformation into a frozen wasteland would have generated exactly the kind of global upheaval described in these ancient accounts. The survivors of such catastrophes would have carried more than just stories. They would have preserved fragments of technological knowledge, architectural techniques, and astronomical observations developed by their vanished civilization. This inherited wisdom would explain the sudden appearance of sophisticated monuments in cultures that officially possessed only primitive tools. The precision of Stonehenge, the mathematical perfection of the pyramids, the astronomical alignments of Mayan temples. All of these achievements become comprehensible if viewed as attempts to recreate knowledge inherited from an earlier, more advanced age. But the traces of this lost wisdom extend beyond monumental architecture. Languages contain words and concepts that seem to remember technologies no longer understood. Sanskrit texts describe flying machines called vimanas, with detailed specifications for their construction and operation. The Bible speaks of wheels within wheels covered with eyes, vehicles that move through the sky with capabilities that match modern descriptions of advanced aircraft. Sumerian tablets tell of the Anunnaki, beings who possess knowledge of genetics, metallurgy, and astronomy, far exceeding what early agricultural societies should have developed independently. These accounts were once dismissed as mythology, or primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena. But when viewed in the context of cyclical civilizations, they take on a different significance. They may be cultural memories of actual technologies possessed by previous iterations of human advancement, garbled perhaps by centuries of oral transmission, but retaining enough detail to suggest their basis in real experience rather than pure imagination. The genetic evidence supports this interpretation. Human DNA contains markers that suggest our species has passed through severe population bottlenecks multiple times throughout its history. Periods when the total human population dropped to only a few thousand individuals scattered across the globe. These genetic bottlenecks align with the same time periods when climate data shows rapid environmental changes. The survivors of each crisis would have carried forward only fragments of their previous cultural achievements, forcing humanity to rebuild from scattered remnants of lost civilizations. Each recovery would have followed similar patterns. Small groups of survivors carrying incomplete knowledge would have struggled to recreate the technologies of their vanished world. Without the industrial infrastructure to support advanced manufacturing, without the population base to maintain specialized knowledge, they would have been forced to simplify and adapt. The monuments they built would have been attempts to preserve the most essential knowledge in forms durable enough to survive future catastrophes. This explains why ancient monuments often encode mathematical and astronomical information far beyond the apparent needs of their builders. They were not just temples or tombs, but archives, stone libraries designed to preserve crucial knowledge through periods of civilizational collapse. The builders understood that their own society was vulnerable to the same forces that had destroyed their predecessors. They built their monuments as messages to future generations, hoping that someday humanity would recover enough to decode the warnings and wisdom embedded in stone. The pyramid complexes beneath Antarctica may represent the most comprehensive of these stone archives. Built during a period when the continent was habitable, they would have preserved the accumulated knowledge of a global civilization at its technological peak. Their burial beneath miles of ice ensured their preservation through the catastrophe that ended their builders' world. Now, as the ice begins to melt, these archives prepare to release their contents back into a world that has once again approached the threshold of advanced technology. But the emergence of these buried libraries comes at a moment when humanity faces its own potential collapse. Climate instability, resource depletion, technological overreach, and social fragmentation threaten the foundations of our current civilization. The warnings encoded in ancient monuments speak of similar crises that preceded earlier collapses. They describe civilizations that grew too powerful, too disconnected from natural limits, too confident in their ability to control forces beyond their understanding. The advanced technologies we are developing mirror those hinted at in ancient texts. Artificial intelligence systems that exceed human comprehension, echo descriptions of thinking machines that served previous civilizations, genetic engineering projects that manipulate the building blocks of life, resemble the biological modifications described in Sanskrit texts. Climate control experiments that attempt to manage planetary weather systems match the environmental manipulation capabilities attributed to vanished cultures. Are we following the same path that led our predecessors to destruction? The evidence suggests that each cycle of human civilization reaches similar technological thresholds before encountering forces that reset the entire process. The specific mechanisms may vary, but the pattern remains consistent. Advanced societies develop capabilities that ultimately exceed their wisdom to use safely. The suppression of Antarctic research takes on new urgency in this context. Those who control access to the buried archives may understand that humanity stands at a crossroads similar to those faced by previous civilizations. They may recognize that the knowledge preserved beneath the ice contains both the keys to transcending our current limitations and warnings about the dangers of technological hubris. The choice facing those who guard these secrets is profound. Do they release information that could accelerate our technological development, risking that we will repeat the mistakes of our predecessors? Or do they maintain silence, hoping that we will somehow navigate the current crisis without the benefit of accumulated wisdom from previous cycles? This dilemma grows more complex as the physical barriers protecting the Antarctic archives begin to fail. The ice that has concealed these structures for thousands of years is melting at accelerating rates. Satellite imagery shows massive changes in ice coverage across the continent. Areas that have remained frozen since the last ice age are beginning to expose bare rock for the first time in millennia. When the first pyramid peaks break through the melting ice sheets, the secret will become impossible to contain. The global media will converge on Antarctica. Researchers from every nation will demand access. The structures will be photographed, measured, analyzed, and broadcast to every corner of the world. The carefully maintained silence will shatter in the face of undeniable evidence. Humanity will then face the reality that our species has achieved technological sophistication before, only to watch it collapse into ruins and legend. We will confront the possibility that the future we are building has already been attempted by our ancestors, with results catastrophic enough to bury their achievements beneath miles of ice. The emerging pyramids will serve as both inspiration and warning. They will prove that human ingenuity can create wonders that seem impossible to later generations, but they will also demonstrate that no achievement is permanent, no civilization immune to the forces that shape our planet's long history. In that moment of revelation, humanity will be forced to choose between two paths. We can view the buried archives as treasures to be plundered, sources of advanced technology that can accelerate our own development regardless of the risks. Or we can approach them as warnings from the past, reminders that technological power, without corresponding wisdom, leads inevitably to destruction. The choice we make will determine whether our civilization becomes the first to break the cycle of rise and collapse, or whether we join our predecessors beneath the ice, leaving our own monuments as warnings for whatever comes after us. The truth waits beneath the melting ice, patient and inevitable. Soon, it will demand our attention, our understanding, and our wisdom. How we respond will shape not just our future, but the future of every generation that follows. The hidden pyramids of Antarctica are about to become visible to the world. What we do with that revelation will define our species for millennia to come. The moment of revelation approaches faster than most realize. As global temperatures continue their relentless climb, the ancient ice that has protected Antarctica's secrets begins its inevitable retreat. NASA satellite data shows ice loss accelerating beyond all previous models. Glaciologists speak in hushed tones about tipping points already passed, about feedback loops that make the melting irreversible. What they do not discuss publicly is how this accelerating ice loss will expose structures that challenge the very foundation of accepted history. Recent thermal imaging reveals heat signatures beneath the ice that do not match known geological patterns. These thermal anomalies form geometric shapes too regular to be natural volcanic activity. The heat appears to emanate from deep within the buried structures themselves, as if some ancient energy source still pulses within the frozen monuments. When questioned about these readings, government officials offer vague explanations about geothermal activity and underground hot springs. But the patterns are too precise, too organized to be explained by random geological processes. More troubling still are the seismic readings coming from deep beneath the ice. Research stations across Antarctica have detected low-frequency vibrations that pulse in regular intervals. These vibrations do not match any known geological phenomena. They resonate at frequencies that seem almost artificial, as if massive machinery were awakening after thousands of years of dormancy. The timing of these seismic anomalies coincides perfectly with the thermal signatures detected by satellite surveillance. Something beneath the ice is responding to the changing conditions above. As the crushing weight of accumulated ice lessens with each passing season, the structures below appear to be experiencing some form of activation. Whether this represents the resumption of ancient technological processes or simply the groaning of stone under shifting pressure remains unknown, but the implications are staggering for those brave enough to consider them. Dr. Elena Vasquez was among the first to document these anomalous readings at her research station near the Queen Maud Mountains. Her instruments detected a series of harmonic vibrations that seemed to originate from a point far beneath the ice. When she attempted to triangulate the source, the coordinates led to an area where ground-penetrating radar had previously identified massive geometric structures. The vibrations followed patterns too complex to be random, too organized to be natural. When Vasquez submitted her preliminary findings to the Antarctic Research Council, the response was swift and decisive. Her equipment was declared faulty and immediately replaced. Her data files were confiscated for further analysis that never materialized. She was reassigned to a different research project focused on iceworm biology, far from any areas where unusual readings might occur. The message was clear without being spoken. Some discoveries are too dangerous to pursue, but Vasquez was not the only researcher to encounter these strange phenomena. Across Antarctica, scientists working in isolation began reporting similar anomalies. Electromagnetic disturbances that interfered with radio communications, gravitational fluctuations that affected sensitive instruments, temperature variations that defied atmospheric models. Each incident was investigated and explained away as equipment failure or unusual but natural phenomena. The pattern of suppression remained consistent across multiple nations and research institutions. The coordination required to maintain such systematic silence suggests preparation that extends back decades. As if certain organizations have long anticipated this moment when the ice would retreat far enough to expose what lies beneath. Emergency protocols appear to exist for containing information about Antarctic discoveries. Rapid response teams stand ready to confiscate equipment and relocate personnel who stumble upon inconvenient truths. The infrastructure for suppression is already in place, waiting for the moment when it will be needed most. Yet despite these efforts, fragments of information continue to leak through unofficial channels. Encrypted communications between researchers hint at discoveries too extraordinary to keep completely secret. Anonymous posts on scientific forums describe structures so massive and sophisticated that they dwarf humanity's greatest architectural achievements. Blurry photographs circulate through private networks, showing formations that appear carved rather than natural, designed rather than random. The most disturbing of these leaked images shows what appears to be a partially exposed chamber entrance. The opening is perfectly circular, surrounded by carved symbols that do not match any known ancient writing system. The stonework displays the same impossible precision found in other megalithic sites around the world, with joints so tight that no mortar was needed to bind the massive blocks together. But the scale exceeds anything previously discovered. The visible portion of the entrance suggests a chamber large enough to house a modern cathedral. More leaked imagery reveals corridors extending deep into the ice, their walls lined with the same precisely fitted stonework. These passages appear to follow geometric patterns that suggest purposeful design rather than natural cave formation. Some corridors branch into complex networks that extend for miles beneath the surface. Others lead to chambers filled with objects that remain tantalizingly unclear in the poor quality images that have surfaced. The few researchers who have glimpsed these hidden spaces speak of an overwhelming sense of entering a place built for purposes beyond current human understanding. The architecture suggests builders who thought on scales that dwarf modern urban planning. The engineering implies technologies capable of moving and shaping stone with precision that challenges our assumptions about ancient capabilities. Most unsettling of all is the preservation. After thousands of years beneath crushing ice, the structures remain intact, their surfaces unmarred by time or pressure. This level of preservation suggests construction techniques that exceed anything in our current knowledge base. Modern concrete crumbles within decades when exposed to freeze-thaw cycles. Steel corrodes and weakens under pressure. Yet these ancient builders created monuments that have survived conditions that would destroy our most durable materials. Either they possessed construction methods we have lost, or they use materials we no longer understand. The implications extend beyond mere archaeological interest. If these structures can withstand thousands of years beneath miles of ice, they represent engineering knowledge that could revolutionize modern construction. The techniques used to achieve such durability could solve current problems with infrastructure decay and environmental damage. But accessing this knowledge would require acknowledging that the structures exist, something those in power seem determined to prevent. The reasons for this suppression become clearer when we consider what else might be preserved within those ancient chambers. If the builders possessed advanced engineering capabilities, they likely also developed other technologies that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. Mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, energy systems, all could be preserved in forms that would accelerate human development by centuries. But perhaps this acceleration is precisely what those in authority fear most. Rapid technological advancement without corresponding growth in wisdom has led to every major crisis facing modern civilization. Climate change, nuclear weapons, genetic manipulation, artificial intelligence, all represent technologies that developed faster than our ability to use them safely. If ancient archives contain knowledge that could further accelerate this dangerous pattern, their suppression might be justified as protection rather than control. The choice facing those who guard these secrets grows more urgent with each season of accelerating ice loss. Satellite projections suggest that major sections of the Antarctic ice sheet will experience dramatic retreat within the next decade. Areas that have remained frozen since the last ice age will be exposed to open air for the first time in 12,000 years. When that exposure occurs, the structures beneath will become visible to commercial satellites, tourist expeditions, and independent researchers beyond the control of official channels. The moment of revelation cannot be postponed indefinitely. The ice is melting too rapidly, the evidence is becoming too widespread, and the technology for detection is advancing too quickly. Soon, the choice to reveal or conceal will be taken away from those who have maintained the silence. Nature itself will make the decision by exposing what human authorities have tried to keep hidden. When that exposure occurs, humanity will face a confrontation with evidence that our species has achieved heights of knowledge and capability far beyond what conventional history acknowledges. We will discover that the technological marvels we consider unprecedented are echoes of achievements that once belonged to civilizations whose very existence has been erased from collective memory. The hidden pyramids beneath Antarctica represent more than archaeological curiosities. They are proof that human potential extends far beyond current limitations. They demonstrate that our ancestors solved problems we still struggle with, created beauty that still inspires awe, and built monuments that outlasted the civilizations that created them. But they also serve as warnings about the fragility of even the most advanced societies when faced with forces beyond their control or understanding. As the ice retreats and these ancient archives prepare to emerge into daylight, we stand at a threshold that will define the next phase of human development. The knowledge preserved in those buried chambers could unlock capabilities that transform our relationship with technology, environment, and each other. or it could accelerate us toward the same precipice that claimed our predecessors, adding our own ruins to the layers of forgotten civilizations beneath the ice. The choice of how we respond to these revelations will determine whether we learn from the past or repeat its mistakes. The pyramids beneath Antarctica are about to break their silence. Whether we listen with wisdom or rush headlong toward the same fate that buried their builders remains the most crucial question facing our species. The ice is melting, the truth is rising, and soon the world will never be the same. As we reach the end of this journey through the frozen mysteries of Antarctica, we stand at the edge of a revelation that will reshape everything we thought we knew about human history. The pyramids hidden beneath miles of ice are not merely ancient ruins waiting to be discovered. They are mirrors reflecting our own potential and our own fragility across the vast expanse of time. The evidence we have explored tonight points toward a truth both inspiring and terrifying. Our species has climbed to extraordinary heights before, only to watch those achievements disappear beneath layers of ice and silence. The mathematical precision, the astronomical alignments, the impossible engineering preserved beneath Antarctica all whisper of capabilities that dwarf our current understanding. Yet something erased these accomplishments so completely that their very existence challenges the foundation of accepted history. The ice is melting. The thermal signatures are strengthening. The seismic readings grow more complex with each passing season. Whether we are ready or not, the moment of revelation approaches with the inevitability of natural forces beyond human control. When those pyramid peaks finally break through the retreating ice and stand revealed under open sky, humanity will face a choice that has been building for millennia. We can approach these emerging archives as warnings from the past, reminders that technological power without wisdom leads to cycles of rise and collapse. Or we can view them as treasure troves of knowledge, sources of advancement that could propel us beyond current limitations. The choice we make will echo through generations yet unborn. If you found this exploration worth your time tonight, I invite you to continue this journey with us. Subscribe to ensure you never miss what we uncover next, and share this story with someone else who dares to question the boundaries of accepted truth. Leave a comment telling me what aspect of this mystery resonates most deeply with you. Your thoughts and questions help shape the investigations that follow. The silence that has protected these secrets for thousands of years is about to be broken. When it is, we will discover whether we are wise enough to learn from the past or destined to repeat it. The hidden world beneath Antarctica holds answers to questions we have barely begun to ask. And soon, those answers will demand our attention, whether we are prepared for them or not. Thank you for walking with me through this frozen landscape of mystery and possibility. Until we meet again in the shadows of the unknown, keep questioning, keep searching, and keep your mind open to truths that prefer the darkness.